Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Monday Night Nerd. Hope you're having a good night. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Myers, Corp Cosplay. I'm so happy you could all tune in tonight because tonight we are talking about 90s TV. 90s TV. I don't know about you, but I'm a kid of the 90s. I was born in 1988. I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up with all these amazing shows. We're going to talk about all of those. Some of the ones you remember, some of the ones you probably forgot, and a whole lot more. That's the main event tonight. But first, we're going to kick things off with a little bit of news because I did some things this weekend. We're going to talk about some reviews and some thoughts on something I was a little disappointed with. But first, this weekend, I am super excited. It is time once again, every year this time, it's time for the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is this weekend. I'm super excited. As a wrestling fan, I love WrestleMania. I love SummerSlam, Survivor Series, all those amazing pay-per-views. But the Royal Rumble is the best. This is the one that almost everybody I know wants to watch. WrestleMania is one thing, but a 30-man, 30-woman, over-the-top rope battle royal is the peak of wrestling, in my opinion. And I'm going to have a couple people over on the weekend. We're going to have a blast watching the Rumble. This is one of the first times I've had a party and had people over to watch wrestling since the pandemic. I used to have people every single month over to my house to watch pay-per-views. Well, I'd invite them. Whether they'd come or not, that was up to them. But this is the first time I've done it since the pandemic, and I'm super excited because I want to watch some more wrestling. I'm not as big of a wrestling fan as I used to be. I used to be a diehard. I used to skip things to watch wrestling. I'm an adult now. I can't do that, but I'm super excited because the Rumble is always amazing, and it's going to be a great weekend. So next weekend, make sure to tune in because I'm going to be telling you all my thoughts on the Royal Rumble. Let's start off now with a review. I watched the Marvels this weekend. I finally got around to watching the Marvels, and it's not as bad as everyone says. I honestly think the biggest problem with this movie is the Marvel fatigue that everyone is talking about. The movie overall is not that bad. I honestly think the three of them together was not a bad pairing. I think that they had a great, I can't say great. They had a good partnership. I think they had a good partnership. I think I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen it. They have a training montage. I think they did a good job with that because obviously you can tell in the trailer that their powers kind of interact with each other. They have a good way of showing off how they learned to make that work for them. I thought that was really cool. As Alex points out in the chat, the singing planet. I was talking to somebody about this, and I made the point of, I understand why they did that. I see the Disney mind moving and saying, let's try this. I also would have shot it normal. I would have shot the singing part. I would have shot a second version of just them talking. And I would have just went, let's see what works when we put the movie together. If you haven't seen the movie, there's a planet where they go to and they sing, and it's kind of annoying. It's really annoying, to be honest. But I see, like I said, I see where they were going with it. The villain was what they usually do with these movies. They just kind of throw a villain that no one really cares about, and it was kind of a waste. And it's gone by the end of the movie, sadly, and we'll never hear from them again. Whatever. Overall, though, I thought it was a fine movie. I mean, maybe I'm a Marvel fanboy. Maybe I just will watch anything that has that name at the beginning of it, but it's not, I don't think it's terrible. Natasha says in the chat, so safe to say you could run to the bathroom during that scene. Honestly, no, because I'll tell you one little bit. Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, gets her final suit in that scene. So I found that to be nice, that she was able to finally get her full suit that everyone knows her for from the comics. But yeah, it was an okay movie. I would give it a pass. I would say if you're a big Marvel fan, watch it. I don't think anything happens in the movie that's not going to be explained later on when the next movie comes out. So if you want to skip it, I completely understand why. The other thing I watched this weekend was I watched the finale of Reacher. I've said a million times I'm not a TV guy, but Alan Ritchson is making me a TV guy. I loved the Reacher series. I watched the first season and loved it. I've now finished the second season. It was just as good. I thought the ending was a lot better than I expected. The first season ends in what most people think of in a final episode. You know, the big villain and Reacher get together, they have a big battle, big kaboom at the end, and credits. This one is a little different. They play, I don't want to spoil it because it's only been out for a little while, but they do play it differently, and there's a lot more after that I didn't see coming that I was very happy with. Like I said, Alan Ritchson is an incredible actor. I'm a huge fan of his now. If you know me well, you know he's Jason Statham is on my list. Let's say I've always thought Jason Statham. If I was to be with a man, Jason Statham is the one. Alan Ritchson is taking a Jason for a run for his money. Alan Ritchson is an amazing actor, and he's a beautiful man, and he is great eye candy when he doesn't have a shirt on. I will fully admit that. So great finale. I felt based off the first season was very punchy kicky, which I was happy with. Season 2, there's a lot more gun shooty. The last episode is again more punchy kicky, which I'm happy with. I like Alan doing more punchy kicky because he's got the size. He's got the mass to him that would intimidate bad guys. I feel like if he's just shooting from a mile away, it's one thing. He doesn't really show off that intimidation point. I think Alan Ritchson doing at the end where he was doing a really good punchy kicky, I think they did a great job with that. So if you're not a fan of Reacher, check out season 1. It's a great season. Check out season 2. Robert Pattinson is the villain in season 2. He kills it as always. He's the villain in Peacemaker. He's the villain in this. He kills it. He's going to be at Niagara Falls Comic-Con, and I'm excited to say hi to him. I've seen him twice at cons. I haven't had a chance to see him and actually talk to him, but I'm definitely going to talk to him when I see him and say, dude, you are on a renaissance. Because it was incredible seeing him come back after what everyone knew him as the T-1000, and now he's doing all these villain roles. He's incredible. That is so cool. Adam Whaley in chat saying Reacher season 2 was filmed in my warehouse. That is so cool. There's definitely scenes in season 2 when I always mention when they're leaving Atlantic City and they're going for a walk. That is literally 3 blocks from my house. Like, I might go for a walk in a couple days and take a shot and go, this is where Atlantic City is. It's right down the street from me. So they're definitely shooting around here. There's been an interview with Alan talking about what the next season is, because they are doing a season 3. And they were saying you're going to shoot on location. He said, if you just shoot Toronto, Hamilton, you've got pretty much every location you could need. So hopefully he'll be back around in this area. Again, go watch it. It's a great season and a great series. Go check them out. Last, this is something that I was actually really surprised about. When it comes to gaming, there's a game that came out not too long ago that I saw a trailer for many months ago called Evil West. It's a Western sort of steampunk, and there are these guys, they're trying to destroy vampires and creatures of the night. I was super excited. It was played very much like God of War. I was super excited to see this trailer. It was really cool looking, really intimidating, really gritty. And it came free on the PlayStation Plus. And I have the PlayStation Plus subscription. So I popped in and I was super excited. And I played it for half an hour and I turned it off. I was really disappointed. It felt very, I don't know how to explain it. I was not impressed by the gameplay. The gameplay felt a lot more complicated than it needed to be. I will fully admit I'm a kid of the 90s, 2000s. Some of these games like Red Dead Redemption and stuff, which I love Red Dead Redemption 1, but Red Dead Redemption 2, there's a little too much for me to care about. Like, I'm a gamer, but I've got to the age now where I've got things like this. I've got things like cosplay. I don't have time to sit down and read and learn all this backstory and learn all these new controls and blah, blah, blah. And I just felt like I was already doing this with this game. And also the way they color schemed it, it's a lot of reds and a lot of oranges. And there were so many cool villains that I was encountering. Like, if you've seen 13 I can't remember the horror movie. 13, it's not 13 Candles. 13 Witches or whatever it was. And there's the guy with the crate on his face, and there's all these glass rooms. I can't remember the movie. But they were really cool villain designs, but they were all just blended in the background. I couldn't see the detail, and I felt like a lot of that was missed. And I felt like I was not wanting to kill the villains. I was wanting to let them get close so I could see what they look like. So it was really disappointing. I only played it 13 Ghosts. Thank you, Natasha. I was just really disappointed by it. I only played it for about half an hour, and unfortunately I ended up turning it off. I might jump back into it at some point, but right now it's not going to happen. What did I just throw on? I started, Tales of Borderlands, because I'm a giant Borderlands fan. It is the new Telltale version of Borderlands. I'm excited to play that. But yeah, I was a little disappointed by Evil West. Now, I mentioned earlier that we are going to have a big announcement tonight. Cheers, everybody. I'm drinking my H2O. I have a big announcement. If you are a fan of this show and you are sitting there right now going, Mike, I love the show. I think you do a great job. I think the content is great, but I can't stand looking at your face. I completely understand that. I've had so many people tell me that over the years. I understand. I have done something to make your life easier. Officially, as of right now, if you go on Spotify, you will find Monday Night Nerd under the podcast. Yes, Monday Night Nerd is now on Spotify as of 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can find all the old episodes. Are they in order? Of course not, because Spotify never puts anything in order. But after the show, as of tomorrow, I will try my darndest, knock on wood, to upload this audio version of this show onto Spotify so you guys can enjoy this anytime you are out walking around. I understand that watching on YouTube every Monday night, it can be strenuous and it can be too much for people. I completely understand. So this is another way that you can enjoy Monday Night Nerd, and I hope you guys will take advantage of it. Throw in some 5-star ratings, throw in some reviews. It means a bunch to me. If you do that here too, if you like, subscribe, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up, hit that comment button, leave an actual comment. I love that everybody's commenting over here. I love it. Thank you so much. It means so much to me that you guys are always talking in the chat. But after the video, if you can go down into the comments and actually comment, hey, love the show, blah, 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 that helps too. That means a whole bunch as well. So thank you, everybody, very much for being here and checking out the show. It means a bunch. And if you want to check it out on Spotify, it's there now. Again, the past episodes are not in order because why the hell would Spotify put it in order when I uploaded it in order? But whatever. They're there now. Check them out after the show's done. Folks, it's all the news for tonight. We are now going to jump into the sponsorship, and then we're going to jump into the main event. Sponsor, as always, is my beautiful, loving, amazing, talented wife. I would not be the person I am without her. I truly, truly mean that. If you knew me over a decade ago, and now you see me now, you would not believe the difference. And honestly, I will be completely transparent. It is because of my wife. She has made me a better person, and she does it every single day. Hun, I love you. Thank you so much for everything you do. You will always be my number one sponsor. Thank you. Let's jump into the main event, folks. We're going to talk about 90s TV. I am rocking my Video and Arcade Top 10 from Retro Kid because we're talking 90s tonight. 90s TV. I am a kid of the 90s. I was born in 1988. I am 35, oh my God, years old. But I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up watching so many TV shows, and we're going to talk all about those tonight. Now, there are a myriad of shows we could talk about. There are hundreds and hundreds of shows from the 90s we could talk about. I don't have all night. So I broke these down into categories. There's going to be specific categories, and there's going to be 4, 3, 5, around that number of shows we're going to talk about per category. Now, also, these are going to be mostly cartoons. There are a couple that are going to be real action people, but most of these are going to be cartoons. Why? Because if I added real shows into it, like Saved by the Bell and all those, we'll be here forever. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch them that much. I didn't watch many of those shows growing up. I was, 2 to 12 by that point. So I was a cartoon kid. I was also an artist. I just used to draw a lot, so that was my thing, was cartoons. So there's a lot of cartoons on this list, but there's also some other things. To help this happen and to help you guys, if you're watching now or if you're watching in the future, I'm going to throw up a little bit of a graphic over here, and we're going to talk about the show, and you can follow along of what show we're talking about. So if you jump in late, you're not going to be lost. Let's jump in to the first thing we're going to talk about, and that is something that I don't think you could do nowadays. I think this is something that gets lost on our generation because we grew up with it. We were in a generation where even as kids, we had the boundary pushed a little bit, just a little bit. When you grew up in the 80s, everything was happy, content, Care Bears, blah, blah, blah. When you hit the 90s, the TVs and the movies tried to push a little bit. How much could a generation take? And what did we get from that? Well, we got Are You Afraid of the Dark? We got amazing shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps. We had scary TV shows when we were growing up. We had shows that nowadays, when we're this age, aren't really that scary. But back in the day when I was, again, 2 to 12, these were pretty scary TV shows. This started in 1990. Are You Afraid of the Dark is a Canadian show. Good job, Canadian Television Board. And if you don't know about Are You Afraid of the Dark, you had a group of kids who would get together. They were called the Midnight Society. They would sit around a campfire and they would tell ghost stories. And you would sit around with them. They would throw some salt into the fire. The fire would explode. And then you would go into the story and you would watch what their story was. And it was so cool. You also had some amazing kid actors. Specifically, you might recognize this person here. This is Miss Alicia Cuthbert, who made a big time splash in the TV show 24, the Girl Next Door movie. And I believe she's been in a couple other TV shows recently. There was a gentleman, he's not in this picture, but he is now on the weather station in Canada. I remember him. But overall, I loved the show when I was a kid. This was one of the shows that I've seen so many people talk about, when you're a kid and you close your eyes, but you kind of open it up just a little bit because you kind of want to see it. That was this TV show to me. I loved the scary stories. I love being scared by this. It scared me, but it didn't terrify me like a horror movie would. It would always end with, them laughing at the end of the episode. So this was a classic. I know they tried to bring it back a few years ago, and I don't think it was really successful. I think this is something that was definitely a generational thing. I don't think you can do it now with the internet and stuff. It's kind of hard to bring fear back after we've seen everything you can on this device right here. So a great show of the times, but I don't think it would work right now. The middle kid was in Mean Girls. Was he in Mean Girls? Really? I did not know that. That's interesting. The pool episode messed me up. Edith, yes, I remember that episode. That scared me too. So I completely understand why you'd feel that way. To go along with this, though, the TV board in the US and Canada realized that kids like this stuff, so we moved into a generation of Goosebumps. This is the other scary TV show that we grew up with in the 90s because we grew up with the books. This was a line of books, if you're, below the age of 18. This was a line of books when we were growing up that everybody wanted. But I don't remember everybody reading. I had so many kids, and I was that kid where we rented these books from the school library as soon as they hit the shelves, but everyone was scared to read them. But we all loved the covers. The covers were iconic. And I think if you showed the cover picture to any kid from the 90s, they could tell you what the book name is. This was a show that all the episodes were based off the books. They were little half-hour episodes that delve into the book story. There were many things like the doll in the middle, Mr. Slappy, the girl who cried wolf. There's so many amazing storylines and amazing titles. I love the titles of some of these books. This again was, they tried to reboot it. They've had the movies with Jack Black. They've had the new series. Again, I don't think horror in 2020, 2010s, I don't think it really works because, again, we've seen so much of this and kids have been so exposed to horror of, fantasy world and sadly reality that it's hard to get them to be scared of something like a killer doll or a teacher who eats bugs and stuff like that we found creepy and scary when we were kids. But another classic, I think, if you have a little kid and you wanted to show them this, I think it would be okay. I think they would be able to understand it. They'd be able to comprehend the scary of it as long as they were monitored and watched with an adult. So another classic show that we got to love. The next category we're going to go into is animal superhero shows. Folks, I didn't realize this until I started doing my research. There was a lot more animal superhero shows than I remember. I remember the first two very well. The next bunch, I forgot about. Let's jump into the next one. The one that most people would recognize if you're a kid from the 90s, Biker Mice from Mars. This is a TMNT ripoff, sort of, but you know what? It's still such a cool show. I think it only ran for a couple seasons, folks. This is exactly what you think it is. These are alien mice and rats that ride motorcycles that come down to Earth. Do I need to say more? It's like TMNT. That's it right there. Biker Mice from Mars, you're done. If you don't get hooked by the title alone, you don't ever watch it. You're done. This was a really cool show. I know Ryan Reynolds is in talks to reboot this. I don't know if it's going to be a limited run series. I don't know if it's going to be a full series. I don't know if it's going to be a movie. But seeing what they can do with animation now, I think this would be an amazing show to see redone. It's definitely got potential for toys, which I still have toys from this show. I think it's got tons of potential. I hope Ryan does it. I hope it doesn't get lost because some of these projects they get signed on for and then they just fall apart. The next one, this was the show for me growing up as a kid. It sadly only lasted like a season, but Street Sharks was huge when it came out. This was one of the few shows where I went to my mom and I said, Mom, I want all of the toys. These were some of the coolest looking toys that existed. Everybody had the G.I. Joes. Everybody had Power Rangers. Everybody had Turtles. They had moving arms. They were a human-shaped body. Done. These were a plastic bottom, a plastic endoskeleton, plastic arms, but rubber bodies that open and shut when you push down on their fins. I still have all 4 of them at my mom's house. I loved this show. It is a bad show, though. I will fully admit, this is one that I went, this was amazing, and then I put it on again, and I went, this is not that great. I will fully admit, it's not the best show, but it is still a classic from the 90s. This is another one. I've heard them wanting to do reboots of it. I don't know if it would work now. It's kind of a one-note thing, but you never know. I would love to figure out a way to do a cosplay of them. I know it's probably impossible. I've seen some people do it out of foam, and it's giant. I don't know if I could do it. I'm not really good with rubber and latex, but I've seen people try and do it, and it turned out pretty good. But this was an amazing show. I loved it. I forgot to say the plot of the show is 4 friends get together and they all get jabbed with a serum and they all turn into sharks and they can chew through the road, and that's how they get places. Again, it's not a great concept. It just works. Alex said, I've cried many times over cartoons from my childhood, and I wonder how many IQ points I lost watching them. You know what? No, I completely disagree with that, Alex. I don't think if you watch these shows, you lost IQ points. I honestly think it showed you creativity. It showed that you can have something like this, and you can look at it and go, this isn't maybe, the greatest idea, but it worked. It sold a ton of toys. So there's obviously something about this show that worked, and you can come up with your own crazy ideas and it might work too. So, good for them. But yeah, Street Sharks was amazing. Let's jump into the next one. This is one I forgot all about. SWAT Cats. Do you guys remember SWAT Cats? I kind of remember SWAT Cats. I'm trying to remember the details of this. I want to say there was a mouse army they fought. I could be completely wrong with this, but I remember this was one of those shows that when nothing else was on, I put this on. And I think I've watched 3 or 4 episodes of it. It was a really cool look. I had cats growing up, so having cat superheroes was a cool idea. But again, this was another one where we went, let's just get animals and try and make them superheroes. And it kind of worked, I guess. This is not one that had toys, but it is something that I should mention because I remember seeing it frequently, but it's just not something memorable. Good show from what I remember, but don't ask me any details, but I just remember watching it. Reminds me of Sly. Yes, Edith, very true. This does remind me of Sly Cooper too. Probably part of it might be something that they grabbed reference from. I don't know. But I remember watching it and not being something that I just watched in the background. This one, however, Extreme Dinosaurs was one that I forgot about, but I remember watching religiously. And this was one that came out after Street Sharks that I wanted every toy for and was told no. No. This was an interesting one. This was basically what the photo looks like. It's a bunch of prehistoric dinosaurs who come into the world today and are kind of like a dinosaur army. That's basically what it was. It was an odd choice. These were very similar to Street Shark toys where they were big and they had all these weapons attached to their heads and stuff. Again, only lasted a season if I remember correctly, but really cool concept. It reminds me a lot of another show. I'm not going to talk about it here, but I'm going to bring it up quickly. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs was exactly what you think it is. It's a show that had people in Cadillacs driving around when the prehistoric age comes back into the world. Think of Mad Max meets dinosaurs, kind of, but all Cadillacs. That is what I always thought Fast and the Furious would become, and I feel like that is sort of what this is, of that dinosaur future with guns type world. And it was cool. It was cool. I think this is one that a lot of people slept on, a lot of people forgot about, but a really cool concept. And lastly, for the animal-based superheroes, Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa. I don't remember this show that well, but I remember the Super Nintendo game and I enjoyed it. This is, I think, some ex-Disney or ex-animated studio saying, let's put a cow as a cowboy. I didn't say all these shows would be great. We'll get to the great ones in a bit. But there are some of these that I shake my head at, that there's how these things got through the pitch, I'll never know. This being one of them. How this got through the pitch, I know it had 2 seasons at least and got a video game out of it. So somebody really liked this series, and I don't know who because I don't know anyone else who watched it. So anyways, that is the end of that section. Animal superhero shows. Again, there are tons more we could talk about, but we only got a limited amount of time here. Let's jump into the next part, and that is, we're going to just call it the Kings. There are 3 pillars, in my opinion, of 90s kids TV and cartoons, 90s kid cartoons. And there are many others. I can't say. Megan, I know. We're getting to that. We're getting to that. Just wait. We're getting to DuckTales. Wait a minute. Let's talk about the King TMNT. I mean, this show spawned so many shows. How many of the last bunch came out of this? You have no idea. This show it's a parody of Daredevil in some ways. What can be said about this show? This is a show that should not have made it out of a pitch and is lasted 3 generations. Like, I grew up with this. And now another generation's coming up with that grew up with this. And now there's another generation that's going to get this. 3 decades of this. And they're still going strong. Tara says this is the first cartoon I remember watching on a regular basis. Me too. Me too. This was my first fandom of I want to know everything about it and I want every piece of merchandise available. That's what this show was. And this is where I think a lot of these shows saw the merchandising potential of we can slap that logo and those characters on everything. And they did, and they made bank with it. This was a killer show. I don't know what else to say because there isn't anything else to say besides it's TMNT. If you don't know what TMNT is by now, you've been living under a rock. Plain and simple. How can you not love that theme song, says Natasha. Always got you hyped to watch it. That, you know what? I will say something about that. I do agree that this theme song did get you hyped. However, this show also had a theme song and an intro that did not live up to the hype. When you watch the intro, it was 1,000 times better than what ended up on that screen after. The show had none of the boom and explosions and graphics that intro had. The intro was too good, in my opinion. A similar one, and funny enough, I forgot to even mention it here. We'll add this later on. The X-Men animated TV show. I'll talk about it in a minute. That was another one that had a killer intro that the TV show just didn't match up to. And also, if you watch the Japanese one, theirs is even better. So that is the only fault I'll have for the show, is I feel like the intro is a little better than it should be. The Other King, another one. If you're a comic book fan, you can't get any better than this show. You can't do any better than the animated series. This is what every good version of Batman is based off of, because the voice cast in this is never going to be duplicated. The animation style of this will never be duplicated because you just can't. The entire series was drawn on black paper. And if you're an artist, you understand how important that is and how much that brings to the mood and the atmosphere of the show. If you drew the show on white, it would not have the same feeling. The voice cast, Mark Hamill, what's his name, who unfortunately passed away, who I have his autograph and I can't think of it. Everybody in this show was good. Everybody in this show was good. Every episode was good. This is one of the few that Arlene Sorkin, Kevin Conroy, thank you. Arlene Sorkin, who I feel like sadly, I feel like until she passed away, did not get the credit that she did for Harley. Kevin Conroy, there's no better Batman. I'm sorry. There will never be a better Batman voice than Kevin Conroy. That is why he did it up until he passed away. That's why they kept bringing him back. That's why Mark Hamill said he would never do any Joker stuff without Kevin Conroy. End of discussion. That's the best. Go check it out any way you can. And lastly, this one will go side to side with the X-Men animated series, the Spider-Man animated series. Both amazing Marvel TV shows. They laid the groundwork for a lot of what my generation looks for in the Marvel movies. And this version of Peter Parker, the way the Sinister Six are created, the way a lot of the villains are created, the way the storylines are written, are all what I think a lot of the 90s kids want in today's Marvel movies, especially from the Spider-Man side and also the X-Men side. I do worry that we're going to get an X-Men version in some form in the next couple years from Marvel. And if they don't stick close to this animated series, I think we may have a problem. There's a reason, and I'm sorry for every comic book fan out there because I'm one of them. The reason everyone wants Wolverine in that yellow spandex for the Deadpool movie is not because of the comics. It's because of the animated shows. That's why. They have left such an imprint on every kid who watched that show that I think it's definitely going to be something Marvel has to consider going forward when they make these into feature projects. And also, as we mentioned earlier, killer opening songs for both Spider-Man and the X-Men animated series. Let's jump into the next one. Let's go into classic formula and characters. Now, you're probably wondering, what is classic formula and characters? Classic formula and characters are Looney Tunes. That is what I grew up with, and I think a lot of people grew up with. And we had our version of that in the 90s in different forms. We had, to kick things off, the king of them, Animaniacs. This was a show that was... it's hard to explain how much this show impacted my sense of humor. The slapstick of the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot was everything a kid of my mental capacity, I guess you'd call it, wanted from a TV show. The humor for adults in this too. If you go back and watch some of these episodes, there are so many adult jokes. And one of them being when Dot says fingerprints and Prince is next to him and he goes, I don't think so. Jokes like that are pretty funny. And Megan in chat says, love those guys. Good idea, bad idea. I do that so many times. Whenever I see little funny things around it fits, I always try and do the good idea, bad idea. It was a great show. And this is one that they did reboot. And I was worried. I really was worried about how the reboot was going to go, especially with the new generation. The reboot's amazing. The reboot just is such a good show too. So if you haven't seen the reboot, go watch it. It's all the original voice cast. They do a great job in it. Pinky and the Brain, who will also be mentioned later, is in it too. So go check it out. I'm trying to think of what else to talk about. Because it's done by Steven Spielberg and Warner Brothers, there are a lot of Warner Brother references and other movie references in here. So if you are a movie fan and you like cartoons, this is a great series to watch because, like I said, you will see little Easter eggs of people and movies. And also, the side castings. This is a variety show. If you've never seen a variety show from like the 70s or the 80s, this is a variety show with such a good cast of characters. Pinky and the Brain, Mindy and Buttons, so many good cats. Slappy and Skippy Squirrel. Like Slappy Squirrel is one of my favorite characters. The dry sense of humor that she has is my mom to a T, and I love it. Yeah, go check out Animaniacs. If you haven't seen Animaniacs yet, folks, you're living under a rock. Spinoff, such a good part of the Animaniacs show that they got their own show, Pinky and the Brain. It's such a genius concept of the brainiac and the idiot, and it works so well. You know, it's something that I don't think should have worked as well as it did, but because such an amazing writing that you could just do this over and over and over again, and every season works. I think they had 3 seasons of their own show, plus the Animaniacs, plus the new stuff. They killed it. I mean, Animaniacs and Picking the Brain are amazing. Megan in chat said, love when shows did that. Also, Big Comfy Couch and the Dust Bunnies. Big Comfy Couch, another amazing Canadian show. Yeah, can't say anything bad about the Big Comfy Couch. Taught you how to stretch. I mean, I could never stretch like that. I could never do the clock. That I killed myself every time I try that. Another spinoff from an amazing movie, the Timon and Pumbaa show, was out for a season or 2. Another great show. This was again Disney and Warner Brothers kind of taking their concept of a movie character and going, let's just make a TV show about it and have their own little adventures. This was another great little show that I think, again, was on for 1 or 2 seasons. Them just getting into hijinks around, eating bugs and stuff like that. Great show. Great to throw in the background. I think this is one that a lot of people forgot about, but you could really throw it on now for kids if you just want something to watch in the background that isn't The Lion King for the 9 millionth time, which my little nephew is supposedly like that. My sister told me that that's his favorite movie, and it's one of those, as soon as it finishes, restart it, and we're watching it again. So, Britt, watch Timon and Pumbaa with him. And another one, Tasmania. Did y'all remember Taz had his own show? Taz had his own show with his own family, and this was another one like Animaniacs where you could just have so many side characters. And another killer intro. Come to Tasmania, come to Tasmania. That was a song I almost knew every word to. Well, I thought I did. And then I really read the lyrics and I was way off. I just started going, because I really didn't know the lyrics, but I thought I did. A great show, and another great idea from Looney Tunes to just say, let's just give a character his own TV show. Let's write a whole bunch of backstory for him. And they did like 3 seasons with the show, and another great Super Nintendo game. I really enjoyed that game. So another killer show by another killer company. And last but not least, let's just do kid versions of things. The Tiny Toon Adventures with, again, taking this concept of the Looney Tunes and just making it for a younger audience. Brilliant idea. And you got some amazing episodes out of this. And there was actually, if you go on, I think it's YouTube, a guy has actually written out how Tiny Toon Adventures is a model for how millennials and Gen Z people are, because the whole point of the Tiny Toons TV show was for the Looney Tunes, Bugs, Daffy, and all them, to grow the Tiny Toons characters and become the next generation of them. But the Looney Tunes weren't able to get out of the way and retire. They stayed in there so the Tiny Toon kids could never ascend to that superstar status. I never thought of it that way, but it is very true. This was such a great show, but they were never able to evolve and become the main characters. So that, besides the point, I thought that was really cool. But anyways, such a fun little show. I remember watching this so many times when I was a kid. Buster and Babs Bunny, Plucky Duck, Hampton, so many great characters, mini versions of amazing Looney Tune cartoons that we all grew up with. Natasha in chat, Ren and Stimpy. we're keeping it PG. I'm aware how good Ren and Stimpy is. I am aware of how good Beavis and Butthead is. I remember how good it had to be South Park by that point. South Park at that point. We're keeping it PG. I'm well aware. We will talk about stuff like that in the future. Believe me, I've got a list started for stuff like that. The next group we're going into is movies to TV. Now, this was something that started in the 80s. The 80s was very good at trying to take adult movies and turn them into kid TV shows. You had Terminator kid TV show, little TV show, and action figures. You had RoboCop, stuff like that you wouldn't want to show your kids, but maybe we can sell a toy, stuff like that. Natasha's got another one there. It's not on the list, but that is a fair one. The new Ghostbusters is definitely one that, you see, the Ghostbusters, I could say you could maybe push. You might be able to find a kid who can handle the Ghostbusters. It's on the line. The Mask is one that definitely came to mind. The Mask is such a movie that goes right into cartoon territory the second that movie starts and Jim Carrey puts the mask on. If you don't know, The Mask is actually based off a comic book that was a lot darker than the movie and the cartoon. It was a very adult movie. It's a very adult comic book, but they were very good at making it child friendly. And the Mask TV show, I think, is just as good as the movie, and I love the movie. I don't believe they got Jim Carrey for the voice acting, but I think the person who plays it does a very good role in it. Megan in chat with another great one, Real Monsters. That's another one that's going to be on a future list. I've got that listed already. Another classic. There are so many great YTV shows. I might do one of the more dark, night. I call them nighttime animated ones where you didn't play it during the day. You played it more, I want to say, for the bigger kids, let's say. Next one. Anybody who craps on the Godzilla 98 movie, you wouldn't get this. And I'm sorry. This is a good show. The Godzilla series was great, in my opinion. They took a movie that everyone crapped on and they made an amazing, captivating animated show out of this. It was completely a Monster of the Week show, but the animation style and him crawling up the Empire State Building was such a great show. I think they did. It's got the same animated feel as the next show that we're going to be talking about. I enjoyed this. I really liked the creativity with the monsters. It didn't have all your, you didn't have all the ones that are in classic Godzilla lore. They were all brand new monsters, and I think they did a great job with that. Megan, not a show, but shout out to the YTV host for raising me. You know what? I have working conventions. I have run into Mr. PJ Phil a couple times at conventions. I actually gave him recommendations to a restaurant here in the city. But like I do with most wrestlers, when I got to see him, I definitely gave him a good handshake. And I said, thank you for being one of the best babysitters a kid could ask for, because him and the rest of the gang on YTV did such a great job. I know when I grew up and I sort of got out of that phase, there was definitely a point where I was like, I know I'm growing out of this, but it feels like it just doesn't have the same feeling. And looking back on it, I still feel that way. I've seen what became of YTV, and I feel like they just didn't have that same feeling that we had growing up in our day and age. Continuing on, same animation style, and another movie that killed it, and the animated series, I'm sorry, is just as good, the Men in Black series. This was so cool to see all those great different alien ideas and creature creations that I came up with this show. I'm sorry, another comic book that was built into an amazing movie that was built into an amazing show. I don't think this show gets the love that it deserves, because I think it's overshadowed by the first few movies. I'd say first two movies, third one's me. But killer show. If you haven't seen it, I think it's on I've seen it somewhere and I can't remember where I saw it. It's out somewhere on streaming. Check it out if you've not seen it. If you're a fan of the Men in Black series, they do a great job. I love I don't even know what you call it. It's almost like a blocky animation style. Great job. Great job. Great show. Last but not least, I'm a Ducks fan. I'm a Mighty Ducks fan from the movies, so I cannot finish this list. I cannot continue with this list without mentioning the Mighty Ducks animated series. Was this a good show? No, I will fully admit this was a crappy show. It's a bunch of alien ducks that live under the ice where the ducks play, and then in the middle of the night, the ice opens and a spaceship shoots out. It's a dumb series. I will fully admit it. But it's the Mighty Ducks. I mean, I'm sorry. I know. I think it lasted a season. Yeah, I can't say anything else. Like, I really can't. It's a good show. It's a good show for me because I'm a Mighty Ducks fan. That's it. We got 2 more categories, and then I'm going to get you guys out of here. The next one, this is one I'm going to call The East Invades the West, and that is all of the shows that came out of one of the biggest shows ever, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is the list of all the shows that they saw the way the Power Rangers became the Power Rangers by taking Japanese and Asian TV shows and taking them and morphing them into what we saw in the Power Rangers with American actors. This show, like, again, it's still going. It's still going after all these years, after so many iterations. And this, again, is something that they shouldn't have worked as well as it did. This is something that should have been 2 seasons and done. But they did it so well, and they did it over and over and over with so many different versions. And now they're just doing the entire show in America because they have such a good budget. Saban killed it with this. Like, the man in the middle, the Green Ranger, is one of my childhood heroes. And unfortunately, Mr. Jason David Frank is no longer with us. But thankfully, if I went back in time and saw, 5-year-old me jumping around playing Power Rangers, and I said, Mike, when you hit 30 to 35, you are going to start volunteering at conventions with celebrities, and you are going to shake hands with almost everybody on that photo, I would have passed out. But that's what's happened now, and that's the benefit of me volunteering. I've got to meet all of these amazing childhood heroes of mine. What else can we say about Power Rangers? It's Power Rangers. Here we go, folks. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Big Bad Beetle Borgs. Another Saban going, let's take this weird franchise from the East and bring it over here to the West, and let's slap on some American actors. Folks, this is another one that I look at that I remember being a huge fan of, and I look at it now and I go, huh? What? Why did I like this show so much? It's the exact same thing as the Power Rangers. It's a whole bunch of cool looking characters. This is the one that they lived in a haunted mansion. So like Frankenstein's there, Dracula's there, the Mummy's there, the Wolfman's there. It's a weird show, but it's yeah. it was something. Oh, Megan, why did you have to bring that up? I cannot believe. Well, you know what? I can't say I can't believe. This is a show, and I'm going to this is one I wanted to mention, but I really didn't have a category for it, so I'm going to save it for the next one. But I'll quickly mention it now because it is one of my favorites, and it deserves its minute in the spotlight. Reboot. Reboot is the idea of a fully animated CG show back in the day was insane, and that it was A, Canadian, B, done that well, and C, had so many little Easter eggs in it when it came to computers was insane. I loved that show so much. It was one of I wish I had it near me. One of the first things I've ever bought when I went to conventions for the first time back in 2009. I found someone who had a pin of the reboot logo where I could do a reboot. And I bought that instantly. That was the first thing I wanted. I'm glad I picked it up. Yeah. Reboot will definitely do something about Reboot in the future. I just didn't really have anywhere else to put it because it's such a good show on its own. There's no one to compare it to. Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Folks, we are getting to the nitty-gritty of deep cuts here for Saban. This is another one where it's very computer-based. I'm trying to remember the Japanese show that this is that they got the footage from. Can't think of it, but yeah, this was one I was a really big fan of. That costume is one that I'm going to be doing in the next year or two. I want to build that as a cosplay because I was a huge fan of this show. It was only around for a season, but I loved it. I thought the whole idea of going into the computer and fighting a virus, sort of similar to Reboot, funny enough. But it was such a good show. It was such a good show. And you know what? I take that back. It really wasn't that good of a show. I enjoyed it, and I know a bunch of people did because when I mention it to them, they kind of go nuts. And lastly, another Saban, VR Troopers. We are VR. Like, this was another one that Saban just tried to go, let's take another Japanese product and put it into the West and see what we can do. You could put a gun to my head and ask me what the hell this show was about. I don't know. I really cannot remember a lot about this show except the amazing theme song. Yeah, again, this was them trying to take every single property that they could get their hands on and try and make a buck off of it and try and make the next Power Rangers. I don't know if it was the best choice, but whatever. Lastly, let's get into the last category and then we'll let you guys get out of here for the night and enjoy your evening. The last is very similar to this one, but in a different format, and that is end of the year anime, end of the decade anime boom, and that is when shows like this kicked into high gear. Pokemon is something that I never would have thought this would be as big as it was. I was a kid when this came out, but even back then I kind of went, really? Like little pocket monster thingies, like I didn't get it. And then I got it. And then I became a fan. And then it blew the up. This show, I mean, it's Pokemon. Like that Pikachu image right there, that pose is still one of the most seen poses, characters in existence right now. Like, Edith, I will be buried with Pokemon memorabilia. I will forever be obsessed. You know what? Good on you. Like, I know you and so many people are just obsessed with this show. I enjoy it. When I was a kid, I was really into it. I kind of grew out of it. I still appreciate it. I played Pokemon Go when it came out and stuff like that. After Gen 2, I kind of lost interest because I realized, even as a kid, I kind of realized how many new Pokemon and stuff are going to come out. So I just kind of, I pulled the parachute on that one and gave up. Natasha, there's now 1,270. Yeah. There's a ton of episodes in this and ton of games and ton of merch. Good on them though. Like I really can't say anything bad about them. They were the OGs when it came to this. It was a good show. Like I can't say when it comes to the show, I watched it religiously. I really did. I watched it religiously. Pokemon, the first movie, was the first movie I ever saw in theater by myself because my mom and dad didn't want to go because they didn't want to be bored. So my mom dropped me off at the theater and I watched it on my own. I missed the ending because I had to go to the bathroom. So the whole Pikachu crying scene, I missed it, thankfully. But I saw it later on and bawled my eyes out. But yeah, the TV show was great. I can't say anything bad about the TV show. Watching the last episode of the series that Ash was in and seeing it reference so many episodes, so many references to the first episode was an amazing scene for any fan. So good on Pokemon for still doing great. The rival, in my opinion, Digimon. This one I could never get into. This felt like Pokemon Light to me. I know a lot of people who love this show more than Pokemon, or they were at least diehard fans of it. This one I just couldn't get into. I remember watching it. I remember appreciating it. I remember being obsessed with Wergurumon, just because he was a big wolf with pads and stuff. I thought that was a really cool look. The look of like Angemon, I thought were really cool designs, but overall the show, I just couldn't get into it. It wasn't for me. I have seen the movie. I did appreciate the movie. I will give that to Digimon. I did appreciate the movie, but yeah, it's a good show, but it was another property that I knew if I started to get into it, I was going to get full board into it. And at this point in my life, I was starting to become a wrestling fan, and that was sort of my becoming my full-time fandom. And because of that, I missed this. I personally have barely watched any Dragon Ball, but I could not do a list of 90s TV shows without mentioning it, because I know so many people who could recite everything under the sun about this series. So Dragon Ball, I appreciate it. I was actually having a talk with my wife last night. I threw on an old wrestling pay-per-view, and my wife was like, can you explain, like, she knows I'm a diehard wrestling fan. She's like, can you explain why you like this so much? And I said, well, I gave her like the athleticism and the storytelling to a point, and I could kind of see myself in some of the characters. And I said, it's like Dragon Ball. Like, I could never see myself in Dragon Ball, so I don't think I got into it as much. Like, I could never see myself floating in the air, yelling and screaming and not throwing a punch. Like, that's just not for me. But again, I know so many people who were diehard fans, and yeah, I couldn't say anything about it. Megan, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great night. We will talk soon. A couple more, and then I'll get you guys out. Same thing with this. This was another card-based game that I just saw come and go, and yeah, I can't do another card-based game. I was already obsessed with Pokemon. I couldn't do another one, and this just became another property that just blew me away on. No, there's too much to learn, too much to collect. But again, I know so many people who are diehard Yu-Gi-Oh fans who have the big arm thing, have all the cards, knew what they were doing. It was not for me, but I know tons who are diehard into this. And last but not least, I will say this: I am not a big anime fan. As I've said with the past couple, Pokemon I was big into, Digimon was meh, Dragon Ball nope, Yu-Gi-Oh no. There was one anime that I did watch, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It was because it was on during lunch, and I went home for lunch when I was in school. I watched Sailor Moon a lot when I was a kid. I really enjoyed Sailor Moon. I thought this was a great show. I was very happy with the writing. I was really happy with the animation. Puberty may have played a factor in that. I can't not say it, but it's true. But yeah, I thought it was a good show. I really do. I think for a show that was shot or written or drawn or whatever for teen girls, I didn't see a problem with it. I thought it was a great anime. So there's nothing I can say bad about that. And this is another show that I think they're still doing new episodes and new series about it. So, good for them. Good for them. Can we fight evil by midnight together? You know what? That is one that I've seen so many people do a tuxedo mask, and I'm just like, it's such an easy cosplay that maybe I'd do a tuxedo mask one. I don't know. Maybe I'd want to do Luna. I want to do one of the cats, if anything. But yeah, that was that was a good show. I had no problem with saying that I watched a lot of Sailor Moon when I was growing up. Folks, it is after 8 o'clock. I am so thankful you guys have stuck around. It means the world to me. If you haven't already, click that like button, click that share button, click that all those things. It means the world to me. If you're listening later on, now that we're on Spotify, I greatly appreciate it too. Leave a review. Tell me how good the show is. Tell me some things you might want to change. Whatever you can do, it means so much to me that you stuck around. Next week, we are going to be back, and we're probably going to be talking about movies. There was an episode that I shot, one of the first ones. I want to say it was probably episode 10 or 12 of this podcast, and it was error central. Like, things just didn't work. The stream got cut, whole bunch of problems. I'm going to redo that tomorrow, and the topic is going to the movies. I loved going to the cinema. I love going to the theater to see a movie. We're going to talk about what it was like back in the day going to see the movies, what it's like now, and what I feel like it's going to be like in the future. Do I think movie theaters are going to be gone in the next couple of years? Do I think they're going to still be here? What are they going to look like? Are they going to be 50 screens? Are they going to be one screen? We're going to talk about all that and a whole lot more. Folks, again, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. Have yourselves a good week. I will see you all next week here on Monday Night Nerd. Have a good week, folks. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.